Little girl's heartfelt plea for help revealed the incredible life-changing act of a millionaire. In the quiet town of Maplewood, a story unfolded that would spark hope in hearts and teach communities the true meaning of compassion. 8-year-old Emma, a bright and spirited girl, was the heart of her home. Raised by her single mother, Sarah, they weathered life as storms together. Their old car had just sputtered its last breath, leaving them to scramble as the bills piled up. Emma knew hardship, but in her eyes, family was everything. One sunny afternoon, while playing barefoot in the yard, Emma caught a glimpse of her elderly neighbor, Mr. Thompson. The kind war veteran, once spry and jovial, now sat on his overgrown porch, gazing at his wilting garden, his spirit fading alongside the flowers. Emma felt a tug at her heart, a potent mix of empathy and concern. She could no longer ignore the peeling paint and tangled weeds that covered his home like an old jacket. Determined to make a difference, Emma rushed inside and crafted a video on her mother's old smartphone. "Hi, I'm Emma," she began, her eyes wide with earnestness. "I want to help Mr. Thompson. His garden is sad, just like he is, and I know how it feels to need help." The sincerity in her voice and the raw emotion of her message wrapped themselves around every listener like a warm blanket. She told tales of her mother's sacrifices, her bravery shining through their struggles. "Sometimes, we all need a helping hand," she exclaimed, her face lit by the glow of hope. Before she knew it, Emma's video went viral. Within hours, the views had surged, capturing the hearts of not just Maplewood but of a reclusive millionaire named John Mitchell, who lived in a mansion at the edge of town. His luxurious life felt hollow, overshadowed by years of isolation. He watched Emma's plea, tears glistening in his eyes. Here was a child who understood the beauty of community and compassion, and it stirred a desire in him to act. "I want to help them," he thought, feeling something inside him shift for the first time in years. But as Emma worked with John to create a plan for Mr. Thompson, whispers of doubt rose among the townspeople. Rumors flew about John's wealth, igniting suspicion and judgment. How could a millionaire truly care? Emma felt the weight of this skepticism, her heart sinking as she watched the divide grow. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The stakes were higher than ever, and tensions boiled over as townsfolk argued at the upcoming Maplewood Community Fair. Emma stood anxiously by, heart racing, dreading what was to come. Just when it felt as if the community was truly fracturing, Mr. Thompson rose from the crowd, his voice trembling yet strong. "I've seen kindness and struggle, and wealth means nothing if hearts remain closed," he began. His stories of resilience and the importance of coming together silenced the murmurs. Emma felt hope rekindle just when it seemed so far away. As Mr. Thompson wrapped up, the weight of his words hung in the air. Would they understand? Would they choose compassion over fear? As eyes turned toward her, Emma felt a world of possibilities open up, teetering on the edge of transformation. Would their community embrace love, or would doubt reign supreme? The answer felt just within reach. Emma stood at the center of the fair, the vibrant colors of balloons and streamers swirling around her like an overwhelming tide. The chatter of excited children and the aroma of fresh popcorn filled the air. But beneath the surface of this lively festival, a storm brewed. She could feel the skepticism in the eyes of the adults, the whispers that chased her through the crowd. What would happen next? Would the townspeople truly listen? She clutched her small hands together, fingers trembling with anticipation. Just then, she spotted John Mitchell walking across the grass, his tall figure draped in a simple blue shirt. Despite his wealth and status, he looked out of place amid the fair's jubilant noise. He approached Emma with a warm smile, but she could see the uncertainty behind his confident demeanor. "Hey, Emma. How are you feeling? I don't know, Mr. Mitchell. What if they don't believe us? Her voice was barely above a whisper, eyes wide with worry. John knelt to her level, meeting her gaze. Sometimes it's not about what they believe. It's about showing them what's true in your heart. Let us find a way to change their thoughts, together. With a sudden spark of courage, Emma nodded. Okay, let us show them. They began to walk towards Mr. Thompson, who sat on a weathered bench, watching the festivities. Emma's heartbeat quickened in rhythm with the hopeful chatter of children playing nearby. She felt a warmth build inside her as determination replaced doubt. Mr. Thompson, she called out. The old man turned his head, his eyes lighting up when they met hers. We need your help. The crowd shifted, eyes turning toward them. Curiosity piqued. Emma took a deep breath, channeling all the love and familiarity she felt into her next words. You have the best stories, and we need you to tell them. We want to make this fair about more than just fun. Let's show everyone how important it is to care for each other. Mr. Thompson's smile widened, smoothing the lines of his weathered face. Emma, you're absolutely right. Stories unite us. With renewed vigor, the three of them set a plan. John would sponsor a booth for sharing stories, where anyone could serve as a storyteller. Suddenly, the fair transformed. Balloons became symbols of hope, and every laugh echoed a promise of togetherness. As preparations began, children giggled, enthusiasm pulsing through the air. But whispers still lingered, rising like ghosts in the shadows. Some townsfolk cast doubtful looks at John and his intentions. Emma, resolving to stand strong, kept reminding herself of Mr. Thompson's words. As the sun dipped low in the sky, the time had come for the fair to welcome its visitors. The booth decorated with colorful banners was ready to go, and anticipation hummed through the crowd. Emma stood at the forefront, her heart pounding. Would they accept John? Would they even care to listen? Remember, we're doing this for each other, not just for ourselves, she said, her voice amplifying the emotion that threaded between them. An elderly woman stepped forward, her expression contemplative. Then another followed, and another, their collective murmurs swelling, both welcoming and wary. The moment stretched, and Emma could feel the weight of it, like a pendulum swinging between hope and doubt. The crowd turned as Mr. Thompson began to speak, his voice steady as he shared his tales of war, love, and loss, bridging hearts like threads of a tapestry. Emma listened, spellbound. Yet still, she sensed the lingering resistance among some. As the night continued, with laughter and stories intermingling, John caught Emma's eye and smiled, but she remained acutely aware that their journey was far from over. As the final tales wrapped around them like a warm embrace, she felt a strong hope but also anxiety pulse through the air. Was this the turning point they all needed? Or would the whispering doubts drown out their shared connection? Emma braced herself, holding tightly to the newfound bond they had begun to weave, one that seemed to hang in the balance what awaited them all in the light of day. As the fair continued, Emma stood frozen at the edge of the bustling crowd. She marveled at the smiles spreading across faces as Mr. Thompson weaved his stories, but her heart was caught in a twist of anxiety and longing. Would it be enough? Each word he spoke seemed to hang in the air, hanging like delicate threads waiting to be tied together. The sun went down, casting a warm golden glow over the fair. Emma shifted her weight from one foot to the other, feeling as if the ground was shifting under her. She looked up at John, who was scanning the crowd, and her stomach fluttered. He caught her gaze and offered a reassuring nod. But would that be enough to drown the whispers? A few minutes later, an uneasy silence fell over the fair as a man in a dark suit edged toward them. His brows knitted together as he watched Mr. Thompson. Emma held her breath. She sensed that this man didn't share the infectious energy that had enveloped them. There was a directness in his eyes, something that set them apart from the enthusiastic crowd. "Excuse me," he interrupted, cutting through Mr. Thompson's narrative. "This is an event for enjoyment, not for dwelling on the past." His voice was low but sharp, slicing through the cheerful ambience. Emma's heart sank. She felt rumbles of discontent from the onlookers. Could their storytelling booth really stand against a tide of skepticism? But before she could let fear take root, Mr. Thompson stepped forward, his voice steady and confident. "Sir," he began, "understanding our past is just as important as celebrating our present. Each story told here unites our community, reminding us that we are never truly alone. Isn't that the essence of any fair?" A murmur of agreement rose from the crowd. Emma watched as heads nodded, and she could almost see the walls of resistance beginning to crack. "See," John said softly, easing into her side. "You're not the only one fighting for this."
He was right.
They were a collective now, bonded by stories, laughter, and warmth. Just then, another woman stepped forward, healthier and robust against the backdrop of waning sunlight. "My son had a hard time fitting in when we moved here," she said, her voice rich with emotion. "It was the stories I told him that helped him make friends." "You're right. Stories are important." Emma felt like a wave had surged through the crowd. The energy shifted, and she watched as the man in the suit retreated, a flicker of uncertainty now playing in his expression. As the stories flowed, more people began joining in, sharing their own lives, their struggles, and their joys. Laughter erupted as Mr. Thompson launched into another tale, and cheers erupted when a child recited a funny poem he had penned. Emma felt a rush of relief that swept away her lingering fears. The weight in her heart lightened like a balloon floating up into the evening sky. But just as hope flickered bright, she noticed a familiar face lurking at the edge of the booth. It was Sarah, one of the town's most outspoken critics, arms crossed tightly over her chest. Emma felt a pang of unease. This was more than a festival, it was becoming a test. Would they have the strength to hold on to what they built here? Before Emma could process, Sarah stepped forward, her eyes glinting with skepticism. "What is all this really about? Is it real, or just a game to make yourselves feel good?" The crowd stilled, a hush falling over everyone. Emma's heart raced as she stood at the brink of confrontation. This was the moment they needed to prove that their stories mattered and that they could unite a fractured town. As she prepared to speak, she felt like she was standing on the edge of a diving board, knowing that what came next would change everything. How could she find the right words to convince them? Would her voice rise above the doubts threatening to pull them back into shadows? Determined, Emma took a step forward. Emma took a deep breath, letting the air fill her lungs before letting it out, steadying her racing heart. She could feel the weight of countless eyes on her, the fair's warmth suddenly sharp against the chill of uncertainty. The crowd was a sea of expectations, and in that moment, she wasn't just fighting for her own voice but for all the stories waiting to be told. "Sarah," Emma began, her voice trembling but resolute. "What we're doing here isn't just for fun. It's about connection, about bringing our stories into the light." Sarah raised an eyebrow, clearly not convinced. Her arms remained crossed tightly, as if ready to ward off any emotional assault. "Every single one of us has a life that's woven with ups and downs," Emma continued, feeling passion rise within her. "We've all faced moments of fear and doubt, joy and celebration. Sharing these stories, reminds us that we're not alone in whatever battles we face. It reminds us of our shared humanity." The crowd stirred, faces shifting as they absorbed her words. Emma glanced at John, who encouraged her with an earnest smile, his faith in her giving her strength. But she could see the skepticism still ingrained in many eyes, particularly in Sarah's. "Just the other day," Emma said, attempting to shift the mood, "I heard a story about a little girl who found comfort in tales of bravery. She was scared about moving to a new town. And yet, it was the stories of heroes that gave her hope, that made her feel like she could conquer any challenge. She even stood up to share her tale at school." Laughter bubbled from a corner of the crowd, breaking some of the tension. Emma reveled in the moment, using it to fuel her next words. "Imagine if we didn't have stories to guide us. Imagine if that little girl never found the courage to speak up. She wouldn't have discovered true friends." That was the spark she needed. She could see a few nods, people starting to lean in as they engaged with her narrative. "Every tale shared tonight is a step toward healing," Emma asserted, fighting against Sarah's doubtful gaze. We're building a bridge, not just for ourselves but for our children, our community. Isn't that why we're all here? To celebrate our journey and learn from each other? Emma's heart raced, and she could feel the stirrings of change in the air as whispers of support began to ripple through the crowd. "Look around," she exclaimed, gesturing with wide arms. "These are not just strangers, they're your neighbors, your friends. I urge you to listen with open hearts. Because every story, no matter how small, is a thread in the tapestry that binds us together." A few brave souls stepped forward, sharing their tales, some prompted by Emma's passion, others by their own need to be heard. Sarah's demeanor started to shift. The glare in her eyes softened, and her arms slowly loosened. "I don't believe in fairy tales," Sarah finally said, her head tilted slightly, her voice carrying an edge but also curiosity. "But perhaps there's merit in sharing them, if it truly brings us together." A hopeful murmur flowed through the crowd at Sarah's words. Emma felt warmth swell in her chest. They were teetering on the cusp of change, the air charged with potential. But just as the atmosphere began to brighten, a distant sound of thunder rumbled ominously overhead. The sky darkened, clouds gathering in swift shadows that loomed over them. Emma's heart sank. Could the storm disrupt everything they had started building? Even as she steadied herself against the fresh rush of apprehension, she knew there was more to come. Would they hold on, standing strong together against whatever faced them? Would the fair, this celebration of connection, endure? With the thunder closing in, Emma realized she had to rally her words again. Before the storm could break, she needed to lift them higher. "Let us make this a night we'll never forget," she called out, trying to drown out the growing tension. How would they respond to the gathering storm? Would they rise together to face it? Emma's heart thudded as the thunder roared again, shaking the very ground beneath them. She held her breath, scanning the crowd, searching for a spark of determination amid the rising unease. "We will not be silenced by the storm," she cried, her voice cutting through the thickening air. "Emma's right," shouted John, stepping forward. "A little rain shouldn't stop us. We've come this far." Others nodded in agreement, faces lifting, eyes shimmering with a mixture of challenge and hope. The first drops of rain fell, splattering against the pavement, and a gasp rippled through the audience. But instead of running for cover, they stood firm. The children stared wide-eyed, like they were witnessing something magical. In that moment, the fear of the unknown dulled, and an unexpected excitement took its place. "Look at us," Emma exclaimed, her voice ringing with warmth. "We're all here, together, sharing our stories. The rain, it's just part of our journey. It can't wash away our connections." Laughter erupted, a sound of defiance against the encroaching storm. Emma seized it, feeling a tidal wave of empowerment wash over her. She swiftly gestured at the tent where more stories awaited. "Let us not let a little weather dictate our evening. Are we brave enough to brave the storm together?" Cheers broke out, scattered and infectious as one by one, people raised their voices in agreement. Sarah stepped forward, an unexpected fire in her eyes. "All right, I'll go next," she boldly declared, shaking off her earlier apprehension. "If we're sharing stories, I might as well start with my own. Who knew I'd be here, trying to share my truth?" As she began to speak, the rain fell harder, almost as if the heavens themselves were watering the ground to nourish this moment. Each word Sarah spoke seemed to summon a renewed sense of connection among the crowd. They were all strangers, yet they felt like a community, knitting together through shared experiences. The rain transformed the fairground, turning the air crisp, electric. Emma could see parents pulling children closer, young couples leaning on each other, even the older generation nodding along with the unfolding tales. Suddenly, the storm brought them together, forcing them to confront their vulnerabilities side by side. With every shared story, hope blossomed. A man spoke about overcoming addiction. A woman shared her struggles with loss. Emma felt tears prick her eyes, each narrative resonating with a piece of her own soul. They were raw and real, steeped in the kind of honesty that can only come from life lived fully, each tale a candle against the gathering darkness. As the rain continued to fall, something shifted in Sarah's demeanor. The lines of skepticism on her face softened further. "You know," she said hesitantly, "I never wanted to tell anyone about my struggles. But maybe it could help others." Emma's heart soared. "Exactly. Your story could change someone else's life, Sarah. That's the power we're wielding right now." But just as the warmth of camaraderie enveloped them, another clash of thunder echoed, this one louder and more menacing, causing the crowd to instinctively flinch. Emma's heart raced again, not with fear, but with a thrilling realization that they were on the threshold of something monumental. As lightning flickered across the sky, illuminating the crowd, Emma could sense the energy building, a shared courage rising like a wave. "Let us make our voices louder than the storm," she shouted. "Are you with me?" The chorus of "yes" rang out, echoing through the night, drowning out the last echoes of thunder. But just as they began to share their stories with newfound courage, something unexpected happened. A figure emerged from the shadows at the edge of the crowd. Emma's eyes widened in disbelief. Who was this stranger watching them? And what did they want? Before she could catch her breath, the mysterious figure took a step forward. As the figure stepped into the flickering light, Emma's heart raced. It was a woman, drenched from the rain, her clothes clinging to her frame. Emma felt the collective breath of the crowd hitch, all eyes drawn to her like a moth to a flame. "What do you want?" Emma called out, her voice a blend of curiosity and caution. The tension hung in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. The woman hesitated, her face shadowed by rain-soaked hair. I saw you all from a distance," she began, her voice shaky, yet laced with urgency. "This gathering, it's beautiful. But I need to share something important." The crowd murmured, some leaning in closer, others exchanging wary glances. Emma stepped forward, shielding her eyes against the rain. "What is it? You can speak freely here." The woman straightened, a spark igniting in her eyes despite the storm. "My name is Clara. I've been lost and alone, feeling like an outsider in my own life. But watching you all, it made me remember what it's like to belong." Emma's heart softened. She could sense that Clara carried a heavier weight than the rain on her shoulders. "You're not alone anymore. We're all here together," she reassured. "What do you need to tell us?" Clara took a deep breath, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I work in a shelter for girls who have nowhere to go. Many of them have faced things I can't even describe. They're scared and don't know how to hope anymore. I want to bring them here tonight, to share in this moment." But she hesitated, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I don't know if they feel welcomed, or if they even want to come." Emma felt a collective pulse of empathy ripple through the crowd, an understanding of Clara's plight wrapping around them like a comforting embrace. John stepped forward again, his expression serious. "We can't let fear stop us from showing love," he said. "If they come, we'll welcome them as family, just like we welcomed each other." Clara's eyes shimmered, and Emma felt a surge of hope. But what if they don't believe it? What if they think they don't deserve it? A voice emerged from the crowd. It was Sarah, still riding the high of her earlier courage. "Everyone deserves to feel welcomed. And sometimes that's all it takes to ignite a spark of faith inside them. We can reach out, share our stories, and show them that love exists." Clara looked at Sarah, vulnerability etched on her face. "But what if they've been hurt? What if they can't believe our words?" Emma stepped closer, sensing the storm both inside Clara and outside in the sky. "Maybe it starts with you, Clara. You've seen their struggles. Your truth can melt the walls that fear built up for them. Your bravery might just be the light they need to take that first step." Clara's breath hitched, and the glimmer of possibility rekindled in her eyes. "You truly believe that?" The crowd nodded, a sea of faces filled with determination. With a newfound courage swelling within her, Clara nodded back. "All right, I'll try. Let me go get them. If we can bring our voices together, maybe we can change their lives." As Clara rushed away into the darkness, Emma could barely contain her excitement. The rain poured down harder, washing over the crowd, yet they stood together, united in purpose. The stories they had shared had forged a bond stronger than any storm. Just then, another flash of lightning illuminated the sky, and Emma sensed a shift. Something greater was at work. They weren't just telling stories anymore. They were creating a legacy. But as the crowd buzzed with hope and anticipation, Emma noticed vague silhouettes approaching in the distance. What Clara might bring back would surely alter the course of the night for better or worse. With a racing heart, Emma turned to face her friends, the question hanging in the air. What would become of their newfound courage when faced with the unexpected arrival ahead? The silhouettes grew clearer as the shadows connected a trio of girls, faces illuminated by the occasional flicker of lightning. Emma's heart sank a little as she took in their hollow expressions. They looked worn, like they had walked through storms of their own, some personal and invisible, others echoing in the heavy atmosphere that surrounded them all. Clara returned. Her eyes sparkled not just with determination, but with a tenderness that demanded recognition. "This is Lily, Sophia, and Mia," she said, gesturing to each girl. "They've been through so much. I hope they're ready for this." Emma swallowed hard. She stepped forward to meet the girls halfway. "You're safe here," she said, hoping to instill a sense of welcome. "You're home with us tonight. We want to share our stories, our hopes, our laughter." The girls exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Then, something flickered, a slight smile from Lily, who stepped a little closer. "What do you mean by stories?" Emma noticed Clara standing back, her gaze fixed on the girls, a silent plea shining in her eyes. She caught John's eye, and he stepped beside her, his presence solid and reassuring. "Stories are our bits of truth, our laughter and sometimes our tears," he said gently, kneeling down to be closer in height to the girls. "We're all here, living and breathing together. We want to hear your truth, too." Mia's face crunched up in uncertainty. "And what if our truth isn't pretty?" "Most truths aren't," Emma replied softly, her heart aching for the weight they carried. "But sharing them can lighten the load. And there's always room for healing in this space we've created." Sophia stepped forward then, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if we don't want to? What if we've been told not to trust anyone, especially strangers?" Emma felt a rush of empathy. "I get that. And trust takes time. We're not asking for anything, just sharing this moment while we endure the rain together. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for." Clara moved forward, bridging the gap between Emma and the girls. "You see," Clara said earnestly, "everyone here has felt lost at some point. No one starts out with all the answers." As Clara spoke, Lily glanced up, meeting Emma's gaze with a new spark of courage. "What if your stories can help us, though? What if they show us it's okay to hope?" A wave of warmth spread through the crowd as they realized the gravity of their shared experience. Emma exchanged glances with Sarah and John, feeling the collective heartbeat of connection swell in the rain-soaked night. "Exactly," Sarah shouted with a surge of enthusiasm. "That's it. Hope can start with just one small step. Trust us, we wouldn't be here if we didn't believe it was possible." Lily's tiny voice rang out again, surprisingly stronger this time. "Then, I want to know, what are your stories? Can you really help us believe?" At that moment, Emma understood their journey was not just about support. It was about awakening the light within those who felt deepest in the dark. She felt the weight of responsibility anchor her, but also fill her heart with purpose. "Of course we can," Emma replied, feeling a shift in the air, excitement drumming in her ribs. "Let us share. Who's ready to start? Just like we said, we're all family now." As the girls stepped closer, drawn into the circle of light and warmth, thunder rolled overhead, but hope hummed in the air. They formed a small circle, and one by one, in the midst of the storm, the stories began to spill out. But just before Emma could begin her own story, a screech of tires echoed in the distance, catching everyone's attention. A black car came to an abrupt stop near the gathering. The headlights swept over the drenched crowd, hearts racing in tandem with a growing uncertainty about who would step out and why. Would this person bring a new challenge, Or could they be the answer to a prayer none had spoken aloud? The tension hung thick in the air as the car door creaked open, revealing a tall figure cloaked in darkness. A glimmer of rain caught the edges of a sleek black coat, and a pair of piercing eyes scanned the gathering. The sudden appearance stole the breath of the group, leaving them frozen like statues in the dissipating storm.
"Who is that?"
Mia whispered, fear evident in her voice as she clutched onto Clara's arm. The small movement broke the spell of silence, and the girls instinctively stepped a fraction closer to each other, creating an unspoken fortress against whatever awaited. Emma nudged her way forward, instinctively wanting to shield the girls from any potential threat.
"Hey,"
she called out, trying to project her voice above the sound of rain lashing against the pavement. "Can I help you?" The figure shifted, stepping into the light. A young man, perhaps in his late 20s, emerged from beyond the shadows. His expression, though serious, revealed a kindness lurking beneath the surface. "I'm here for the girls," he said, his voice steady yet tender. "I heard they might need someone to talk to." Uncertainty rippled through the group. Clara's protective instincts kicked in, and she stepped forward to guard her new friends. "What do you mean? How do you know who they are?" I'm someone who wants to help," he replied, his eyes softening as they rested on Lily, who stood wide-eyed, caught between curiosity and wariness. "I know you've been carrying so much weight. I just want to help you lighten that load." Lily took a half-step back, glancing up at Emma for reassurance. Emma felt her heart race at the chance of an ally, but doubt filled the space, palpable and real. "How do we know we can trust you?" she called out, her voice steady, but laced with caution. He gave a small nod, visibly acknowledging her skepticism. "You don't. But I've been there, too. I've faced storms that felt insurmountable. I'm not just here to offer empty words. I want to listen, to understand your struggles. I want to provide resources, to show you there are paths ahead." Emma felt a flicker of hope, but still, doubt lingered in her chest. "And what does that mean? What are your resources?" "I run a foundation," he explained, his earnestness igniting a glimmer of interest within the group. "It's dedicated to helping kids and young adults find safe spaces and opportunities. I can connect you with mentors who have overcome similar struggles. No one should face their pain alone." In that moment, the rain felt less oppressive, the clouds seeming to part just a little. There was silence, a heartbeat in the air as the words sank deep. The girls exchanged glances, their uncertainty battling against the yearning for hope that had emerged from the shadows. Sophia stepped forward, her voice trembling but filled with tentative courage. "Is it really possible?" "It is if you believe it is," he replied, his eyes locking onto hers. "You have the power to rewrite your stories. You have so much strength inside you already. You just need to see it." Emma stepped back, watching the shift in the dynamics, feeling the girls thawing, inching towards possibility. Clara's fierce protectiveness softened, curiosity starting to flicker in her eyes too. But just as they leaned in, a sudden clap of thunder rattled the earth, sending everyone flinching back. In that chaos, a darker question lingered. Could this stranger really be the answer they so desperately needed, or would he prove to be yet another storm in their lives? As the group stood grappling with the weight of the decision before them, Emma felt the resistance in her chest. She gazed into the face of uncertainty, hope glimmering faintly like a swirling light on the horizon. Could it be time to trust again? And at that moment, the reality hung in the air like a heavy mist, ready to unveil the truth with the next word spoken. Would they take a chance on this stranger and his promise of help, or would they retreat back into the shadows? Emma glanced at her friends, their faces illuminated by the flickering streetlight above them. Uncertainty wore heavy on their shoulders, but beneath the weight, hope trembled like a candle in the dark. The rain continued to drum against the pavement, but at that moment, it faded into the background. It was as if the world narrowed down to just the five of them and the stranger before them. "Do you really want to help us?" Clara's tone was softer now, though still cautious. "Yes," he replied without hesitation, the sincerity washing over his features. "I can't promise immediate solutions, but I can offer guidance and a safe space where you can express yourselves. You deserve to be heard." The allure of being heard tugged at Emma's heart, memories of feeling invisible creeping back. She looked at Lily, who, despite her apprehension, was leaning forward, as if drawn to the possibility of something beyond fear. "What is your name?" Clara asked, her voice firm again. "Daniel," he said, a faint smile breaking through the shadows. "And I believe everyone deserves a second chance. I've had mine, and I want to share that opportunity." The girls exchanged glances. Mia's expression softened, and she finally released Clara's arm, stepping towards Daniel with a hopeful spark in her eyes. "And what do we have to do?" Daniel took a deep breath. "First, just listen to your instincts. If something feels right, take that first step. I can set up a meet and greet with the mentors I mentioned, people who genuinely care." Emma felt courage rising within her. "And if it feels wrong?" she pressed. "Then walk away," he replied, his voice steady, drifting into the night air. "Your safety is my priority. But I urge you to give yourselves the chance to experience something new, something you might not have thought possible before." The rain fell in a gentler rhythm now, almost like a lullaby, as they stood contemplating the weight of his words. Emma looked around at her friends. The spark of hope was contagious. Should they take that leap? "Okay," Emma said, a sudden rush of resolve pushing her forward. "We'll give it a chance. We'll come to listen and to decide." Clara nodded, the tension in her shoulders easing. The weight of fear gradually shifted to a notion of possibility. But then, amidst the shift in the atmosphere, a flash of lightning pierced the night sky, illuminating Daniel's face for an instant. Something flickered in his eyes, and a hint of pain shadowed his expression. Before anyone could speak again, a high-pitched scream echoed from down the street, piercing the fragile bubble of courage they had begun to weave. The laughter and chatter of late-night city life abruptly halted, replaced by an ominous silence that draped itself over the group. "Did you hear that?" Lily's voice trembled. "Stay close," Daniel instructed, his demeanor shifting suddenly, taking on a protective aura. "We need to check this out." Emma's heart raced again. The risk of danger seemed to materialize from the shadows they had just begun to escape. As they stepped cautiously down the dimly lit street, uncertainty clawed at Emma. The question loomed large. Had they just moved from one storm into another? And in that moment of fear, their world spun again, leading them toward an unexpected truth that could change everything or shatter what little hope they had found. What lay ahead would determine whether the bonds they had just begun to strengthen could survive the wild, unpredictable night. As they hurried toward the sound of the scream, the rain fell gently, creating a surreal contrast against the underlying tension. Emma led the way, her heart pounding as adrenaline surged through her. The girls huddled close to Daniel, who radiated an air of protection, and Clara's eyes darted anxiously, scanning their surroundings. The scream echoed again, resonating with fear. They turned a corner to find a group of shadowy figures, one person on the ground, struggling, while others loomed over them menacingly. Emma's stomach dropped. This was a scene straight from a nightmare. "Stay back," Daniel commanded, stepping forward, a protective stance shielding Emma and the girls. The tension in the air was palpable, electric, as a flicker of courage surged through him. "Hey, what's going on?" he shouted, trying to calm the chaos. The aggressors paused, turning toward him, surprise mixing with hostility. The figure on the ground was another girl, who looked up, wide-eyed and terrified. "Please help," she gasped, her voice barely audible over the rain. Just then, a familiar face among the bullies turned, and Emma recognized the local troublemaker, Jake. "Why don't you just leave her alone?" Emma spoke, a surprising steadiness working its way into her voice. She couldn't let fear silence her now. She had to stand up. "This is none of your business, kid," Jake barked, but something shifted in his expression as he locked eyes with Emma, a flicker of recognition surfacing. "Let her go," she demanded, her own heart racing as she stepped toward them. For the first time, the weight of being a leader pressed down on her shoulders, but she felt a resolute strength inside her, Daniel took Emma's cue, stepping beside her with a fierce determination. "This isn't what we stand for," he said, his voice low yet firm. "You don't have to prove anything by picking on those who can't defend themselves." The burglars hesitated, sensing the united front of the group. The air shifted, tension rising and falling like a tide. Suddenly, the girl on the ground scrambled up, dusting off her pants. "I'll stand," she shouted, her voice rising with newfound strength. "You don't get to scare me." Emma smiled at her bravery. It was a moment that transformed fear into power. The bullies exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering in their eyes, and Jake scoffed, "You think you're so tough, huh? Life's about survival of the fittest, kids." "Or maybe," Clara said as she stepped closer, emboldened, "it's about lifting each other up instead of tearing each other down." Suddenly, everything changed when the sky broke open, a flash of lightning illuminating the scene. In that brilliant moment, the truth lingered. They were stronger together, almost instinctively. The townsfolk nearby, those who had shared Emma's stories just minutes earlier, began to emerge, drawn by the commotion. Wordlessly, they surrounded the confrontation, creating a protective barrier around Emma and her friends. Old faces, familiar smiles, and newfound allies gathered, forming a united front against the fear and darkness. Jake shifted uneasily, glancing around at the group that had grown from just a few to many. "This isn't over," he spat before backing away, dragging his friends with him. As he retreated, Emma's heart swelled with pride. They had stood together, proving that pain and fear could be met with compassion and courage. The girl who had been attacked stepped forward, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Thank you so much." Emma smiled, recognizing the power of connection. "We're all here for one another," she whispered back, feeling the gravity of it all. Together, they had raised their voices, fought against the storm, and maybe, just maybe, changed their town for the better. As the rain softened into a gentle mist, the crowd erupted in applause, laughter mingling with tears of relief and joy. They were more than just individuals. They had become a family, bonded by their shared fears and victories. Daniel smiled, stepping back, pride glimmering in his eyes. "This is just the beginning, everyone. We've created something strong with these stories, and we'll keep it alive." In that moment, Emma realized that they had all transformed. Doubt and fear had melted into something far more beautiful: hope. As she looked at the faces around her, every one of them had shared a story that night, weaving a tapestry of community. As the crowd began to disperse, the thunder no longer heavy overhead, Emma turned to Clara, Lily, and Mia. "Let us keep sharing," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "This is how we grow." And so, they walked back together, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing they were no longer alone. Now, isn't this a story worth sharing? You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like to help feed the algorithm, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. We're all in this together.